Hi everyone, welcome to Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Today I will be discussing how to come up with a DIY Fair Isle sweater pattern. I don't have one like on hand. I've never actually done this completely off the book, but I really like to promote the idea of like the Fair Isle tradition, which is to use patterns that you find in chart books or anywhere else, and to come up with your own designs. Like that was the traditional way to knit Fair Isle pieces. It always was, I think, in Shetland, and all the books will tell you that. It is something that is kind of hard to conceive of today because knitters are just different. Like the way things are now, people usually use knitting patterns, and they're often like extensive knitting patterns, which is awesome, because knitting is not something that's just part of life anymore as it used to be everywhere, I think. I mean, especially in the British Isles and in England and Scotland and places where wool traditions were even more important than they are in America. So, but I think it's important to know how to do this. If you want to knit a lot of Fair Isle, you should feel confident in yourself and your own skills and your abilities to do this. Oh, the washing machine's done. Sorry, that the song that it plays, my aunt in college, I lived near one of my aunts, and she had the washing machine that played the same thing, and the song is it's called The Trout. It's by Schubert, or Die Forelle in German. I am a musicologist, or I was, not really a musicologist anymore, and I do know that song. And everyone who I've told who has this washing machine, they're like, really? I thought it was just like made up for the washing machine company. I'm like, yeah, I don't know why they use that one. It's very cute. It's a cute song, but it's the washing machine song. Anyway, so I'm going to talk today about the things you need to do to plan for your Fair Isle sweater creation. And I'm wearing my Colorwork cardigan, which I've been doing videos on recently. I haven't uploaded the third video because so on the new iPhone, the iPhone 12, there's a setting on the video camera, I guess, where it records in high definition, and there's a problem. There's like a glitch. When you convert that into iMovie, it like blows out the color of all your videos, and it hasn't done that to me before. But it meant that I couldn't put all the videos like together in one video, so I am going to upload them. They're just going to be like shorter, separate videos, and I'll put them in like a playlist so that they all go together. But in the video, I talk about the yoke colors. I show you how to do up the armpits here, to graph those, which you can't see because this is a Shetland black, so it's really, it's invisible. I show you how to pick up the button bands, and I show you how to needle felt the steek, which I pick up the button bands before I cut the steek open. I actually knit the button bands before I cut the steek open on most sweaters. It's in the same if I'm doing a sweater with armhole steeks, armsky steeks. Did you say armsky? Armska? I don't even know. Armsky. It's spelled ARMSCYE, right? Okay, anyway. I often pick up the sleeve stitches around the steek before I cut it open too, because it puts less tension on the stitches that you've cut. Even if you've secured it, I pick them up and knit them. Often I start knitting first before I snip. That's just me. I'm also trying to look at the this is getting twisted. The kids keep messing with my tripod, and they've broken like so many parts of it, and so it's hard to get it to stay up. See, now you can actually see my desk because the tripod is so broken that it's like tilting my camera down, my phone down. Also, fun fact, I have been told by so many people, my mom mostly, many times, that I know I don't look at the camera, so I put a sticky note on my iPhone like near the camera so that I will look at the camera and it will look like I'm looking at you. So anyway, let me get to the like material of this video. Okay, so DIY Fair Isle sweater. Here are some of the things that you have to do. Number one, you have to come up with a scheme. You have to decide if it's going to be an all over or if it's going to have bands. And there are other things you can do. There's a book. Oh, I should have brought that. It's an Alice Starmore Charts for Color Knitting. It's a book. It's just over there, but now I can't get it because I'm sitting at the tiny desk. And she talks about the different types of sweaters, like places to put the color work on the sweater. This is not a traditional, I mean, this is a Shetland yoke style sweater, but it's a yoke. It's not a, like a full Fair Isle sweater, so you wouldn't need to do steeks for the arms. You wouldn't need any steeks unless, like me, you want to cut it open. So you need to decide if you're going to do an all over, which is a pattern that interlocks like a bunch and it's not broken up into bands, or bands. And then if you're going to do a sweater with bands, you need to decide if you want there to be large bands with smaller bands or Peary bands in between them, or all large bands, all small bands. If you want to do some kind of alternating thing, you need to decide if you're going to offset the X's and O's, if you're doing OXO patterns at all. You need to decide in which order you want the bands. Sometimes we, like the Mayonnaise cardigan that I did, which is episode 6. I did, or maybe it's episode 5. I don't know. Check that on my channel. The Mayonnaise had big, small, medium, small. Big, small, medium, small. And the big bands, the medium bands and the small bands were all the same, although the small ones had the colors offset, which was kind of cool. So that's a good way to do it. Or you could have like 2 different big bands and alternate those and have the same Peary in between, or have different Pearys all the way up, or whatever you want. You can get inspiration from lots of patterns. You have to decide if you want to do a cardigan, so cut up the front or down the front, or a jumper. And this is important because you're going to calculate your gauge that you want to knit at, whatever you're comfortable knitting at with the yarn you've chosen. For a traditional Fair Isle sweater, that would probably be between 30 stitches over 4 inches and like 34 stitches over 4 inches if you're going to knit it really tightly. My go-to is sort of 30 to 31, sometimes closer to 32. I usually knit on a size 2 needle. That's a size US 2, which is, let's see, 1.5 is a 2.25. I think it's 2.75 millimeters. That's my preferred gauge, or my preferred needle. That gets me the gauge that I want. Although a sweater like this had slightly looser gauge, I followed the pattern for this. This was 26 stitches over 4 inches. I used a US 3 for this, and it fits great. So that's just me. I also knit loosely because I don't wrap the yarn around my finger when I'm knitting to get the tension. Some people knit Fair Isle with 2 fingers. I don't do that. I can only knit throwing the yarn with my left hand, or it's not throwing, it's the opposite. It's picking, whatever it's called. Yeah, my knitting is very weird. So, because it's not just continental, it's also through the back loops, which is it's called combination style knitting, and it is, it's like an Eastern European style. My grandmother, who taught my mom how to knit, is Ukrainian Canadian, and she learned from her Ukrainian family, and that was the style of knitting in Ukraine. So that's pretty cool. It's a very ergonomic style of knitting. If you've never heard of it, you probably have never heard of it or seen anyone do it. It's very cool. Okay, I'm gonna get on with this because I'm just gonna talk. It's already 9 minutes. Okay, so you have to decide if it's gonna be a jumper, so not cut, or a cardigan at the beginning for a specific reason. The reason is that a jumper, if it's going all the way around, it either needs to be centered, like you're not going to continue the pattern along all the way around the front and the back. You're going to have like places on the sides where you stop so that your pattern can be centered if you're doing like a large motif, like I did on my lapwing sweater. Again, there's a video on that. It's like maybe episode 9, 10, sometime not that long ago. For that one, I had to center the motifs because they were really, really wide. They were like 36 stitches wide. I had to center them. And I didn't continue them all the way around the sweater. They were the same on the front and the back. They were centered, but it didn't continue. So if you're doing a jumper and you want it to continue all the way around, you need to pick a number that's divisible by like a number that all of your, I know the math is hard. The words, like I remember these words from like grade 7 math, like greatest common factor, least common multiple, like they have to have your total number has to be a multiple of all of the stitch counts in your bands or your all over pattern. So like a lot of the bands are 24 stitches wide. And if you're going to offset them, you need to have you need to have 48. So they can probably properly be offset, like the X and O can line up on each band, which means you need to have a multiple of 48 for your total stitch count. But if you're doing a cardigan, you can see this is like going, it's like, well, now you can see my tiny desk. But yeah, this is tilting. Clearly I should just get a new tripod. I think that might be worse. Let's try this. Yeah, the legs are, nope, that made it worse. There we go. That's better, sort of. Can't really see my head, but whatever. And I guess I can do that. It's just gonna go down again eventually. Okay, yeah, so you should have a multiple of like 48 and then make sure that all of your smaller bands are like divisible by, or 48, like whatever. Like let's say they're 6 stitches wide, that goes into 48. Say they're 8 stitches wide, that also goes into 48. 3 goes into 48. 48 and 24 are good numbers because they have a lot of factors. So that's good. Okay, but if you're doing a cardigan, you don't have to do that because you can center, like you can just center everything around the front where you're gonna start your row, and then you don't have to worry about, like, I mean, the pattern might not be complete, but at least it's symmetrical around. As you can see here, this is complete. This is a complete pattern. I just started the round halfway up the flower, so it would be right in the front. I could have started it halfway up a tree, but then I think I would have had fewer trees and the decreases would have been off. So anyway, because the decreases, in case you don't know, they go around the trees. Anyway, so that's important. You have to decide on your gauge and your stitch counts and figure out your bands so that the number goes into your total count. Yeah, I guess I could, like, I was gonna show some math, but now I don't have a pen. Or actually, no, that's a lie. I have an iPad right here. I brought this because there's some patterns on Ravelry that I was gonna show. Okay, so calculator. I don't even know where the calculator app is. This is terrible. Is there a calculator app? There must be. This is crazy. I don't even think there is one. Okay, I'll just go to Safari. Okay, so calculator.com. Great. Yep, it's tilting. Stupid thing. Nope. Yeah, the kids broke off the leg of this tripod, which is not a huge surprise. It's a toy. They see it and they're like, that's a toy. So it's fine. But it's my fault. I didn't put it away. Okay, so let's say I wanted to make a cardigan that was 40 inches around, and I wanted my gauge to be 32 stitches over 4 inches, which is 8 stitches per inch. That means I need to do 8 times 40, which is 320. 320 is not divisible by 48. It's like 2/3 of 48, which means it's divisible by, I don't know. I mean, it's divisible by 32, which is good. If you can get that's probably 2/3 of 48, isn't it? Yeah, probably. Which means you can just add or subtract. If you want the cardigan to be slightly bigger, you can do, so like 48 fits into 326.666667 times. So you can just figure out how many more stitches you need. Basically, you divide 48 by 7. So 48 divided by 7 is, oh no, 48, sorry, times 7. 48 times 7 is 336. Ah, oh my God, this is terrible. Wow, this is so bad. I wonder if there's something on the floor it's hitting. I don't know. Anyway, there's a pillow, whatever. Yep, now it's just, okay, let's try that. Okay, so that's your stitch count. It'll be a little bit big, but that's fine. Okay, so then you need to figure out, do some math, do some measuring, figure out how long is your armpit to wherever you want the sweater to hit. So if you want it to be a little bit long, I mean, for me, that would be like 16, 17 inches. If I wanted it to be short, it'd be like 12, 13 inches. How tall do you want your arm sky to be? So from armpit to shoulder, how tall do you want that to be? For me, that's like 8 inches. But it depends on the person. Measure yourself or your person that you're making it for. How low do you want your neckline? Do you want it 2 inches lower than your back of your neck? Because then you need to start, you need to put your stitches on hold to do your neck steek, like when you're 2 inches away from your total arm sky height. How wide do you want your neckline? Do you want it to be like a crew neck? Do you want it to be a boat neck? That's gonna be what you use to figure out how many stitches to put on hold for your neckline. So if you want a crew neck, you'd probably put 15 to 20 stitches on hold here, and then start it a little lower and do more gradual decreases around the neck. I'm doing it here because this is a crew neck, but that's not how this is done. This is shaped with short rows before the yoke starts. The short rows are actually in the middle of the yoke. Do you want a V-neck or a crew neck? Because if you want a V-neck, you're gonna have to decrease after you split for your sleeves, or before if you want a deep V-neck, and gradually decrease every round or every other round, depending on how pointy you want your V-neck and how wide you want it to be. And I would say that at the end of the day, you should start by knitting other patterns first. So to get ideas of actual patterns that you can knit, you can, first of all, this is great. Vintage Shetland Project has lots of actual patterns, and there are a few that are just sort of plain. I mean, there's like cardigans and stuff, and there are things like puffy sleeves, and because these are vintage pieces, but something like this, which is just a crew neck, well, it's actually a turtleneck jumper. This is called Yule. It's knit in Jamieson and Smith Heritage. Like, you can either use that as your base pattern, or you can knit that. And this book is really size inclusive, that it goes up to bigger sizes than a lot of the patterns that are published by the yarn companies, just because it's hard to size sweaters, and you have to do like a ton of math. But like Yule, for instance, goes up to 56 to 58 inch chest, which is pretty good. There's also Hilda in here, which is a V-neck cardigan. See if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. Wait, that's the pattern page. Well, there you can see it's just a plain V-neck cardigan. I'm actually gonna knit this. This is like my next Fair Isle sweater cast on, but it'll be a while because I'm working on 2 right now. And I'm gonna knit it in basically these colors, except in these smaller bands. Instead of the, I think it's Moret, is the natural shade. I'm gonna use red, dark red. So this is good for base patterns and other information. Again, these 2 books, Alice Starmore and Anne Feidelson, these have actual patterns in the back, both of them, that have proper measurements and stuff. Although I will say the cardigan that I'm knitting out of Anne Feidelson's book right now, which is the Bray cardigan, there are some things about it that are like, if you didn't know, you might want to change. Like, here's the cardigan. For instance, it tells you that you only need to knit the body 9 inches long, which would be like incredibly short. So I'm knitting mine like 16 inches long. But yeah, it's like when the, I mean, that maybe their vertical gauge is really different. It's not, it doesn't tell you how many inches. It tells you like on the chart where to stop, like where to start the sleeve, or no, it just tells you what round to do the sleeve split. And mine was like 9 inches long when I got there. To be fair though, I did probably 1.5 inches less of corrugated ribbing. But yeah, don't let that fool you. Knit your body however long you want it to be. And so those have patterns in them, but Starmore's book has a whole chapter on like math to knit your own. It's at the back. There's a whole section called Planning a Gansey, and it shows you all the things that you need. You don't always need all these things. Like for instance, this is an armhole gusset. You don't totally need that. It would be oversized. There's a version, traditional Gansey. Drop shoulder Gansey with underarm gussets is a classic shape from which many variations can be worked. That's true. So that's useful. She gives you all the measurements and how she shows you how to center the patterns. Like what happens if you don't center your patterns? It looks like that. Some people don't care, some people do. This one, Sheila McGregor, #1, this has charts. Again, I've shown this before, but there's tons and tons of charts, so that'll be helpful. But there's also a sweater on, a chapter on the math. And this talks about the different types, like a panel, Gansey. I didn't talk about that, for instance, like with the long panels down the front. I'll show you one. There's one. There's a panel Gansey. It's cool. Yeah, very cool. This also has charts. This has got charts too. So you're gonna, for planning purposes, you're gonna want books on math, books on patterns, books on color. Haven't talked about that yet. This is a great book, The Joy of Color by Janine Bajus. Not sure. She teaches you how to build your own custom design. She gives you some charts, but it's mostly about choosing colors, how to do things called like speed swatching to see if the colors go together. But she teaches classes, which sounds super cool. And she shows like her students work as the examples. So there's one, for instance. So that person, I'm not sure if she's the knitter. I think it's her. So they teach you how to take a photo and then choose your colors based on a photo. And I've been trying that a little bit, but I'm not super great at it yet. This is also one of the great books on how to do color from photographs or other inspiration. It's Felicity or Felix Ford. It says, a knitting book that shows you how to turn everyday inspirations into gorgeous stranded colorwork. So again, a lot of this is like how to swatch and how to find something that you like the colors of and how to translate it into Fair Isle. And one of her things is that you're also going to choose colors that are similar, that aren't necessarily in the photo, to kind of help. So like there's a biscuit tin and there's the colors she chose. Super cool. And she's got a coloring book thing that I don't have. I think it's a coloring book, or it's like a more interactive book. But then this one's just the playbook where she does a lot of these bunting things, which are really cool. She also does a whole study about like bricks, which are super interesting, and flowers. And so for instance, like there's some pictures and there's the swatches that have been knit from the pictures. There's specific projects in here like shawls. I'm looking at the center of the phone again. Anyway, this is really cute. She took Russian nesting dolls and she did a computer, iPad, and iPhone case, or not sure if they're iPhones, but computer, tablet, and phone case, like Russian nesting dolls. They get smaller. That's really cute. So color books like that are really useful. You might not need help with color. I'm not going to go into it right now because this video is already 25 minutes long. But then oftentimes other books for charts could be like, I have books like these. that have full patterns in them, but they also have like you don't have to use the patterns, the charts for the patterns that are in there. So I'm gonna show any charts, but like this, the Pharaoh book is great. Something like that is just so beautiful, and you can use charts like that as your inspiration. I would really like to make a jacket like this, but I would modify it to be a full jacket that opens. But that's gorgeous. Or motifs from other motifs from this book, like these. You can use those. This book, Nordic Nets, you could also use one of the Selbu books. There's a Selbu mittens book out now, and there's a Selbu like pattern book that's in Norwegian now, but it's out this summer in English, I think. But this book has a lot of something like that, you know. So for your own Fair Isle inspiration sweaters, you should be looking in lots of places. You know, you don't have to use charts. There's a bottle cozy. You could put that into a sweater for yourself if you wanted to do that. This one's pretty, a star-topped hat. You could translate that into an all-over pattern. Like they give you the whole, I'm not going to show the chart, but they give you a chart where you could, you know, just widen it for yourself and use that for an all-over sweater if you like. Lots of mitten patterns like this that you could use as the basis for your patterns. So things like that are super useful. Again, things that you can, resources for, for this kind of thing are also patterns that you, this is not helping. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get Ravelry. This, yeah, I thought that I had like opened these patterns in new windows, but I hadn't. For instance, Mayonnaise. I've knit this, as you may know, if you watch these videos, but that's a great base pattern. I mean, you could knit this pattern, or you could just take the measurements and the stitch counts and put your own charts in. But it does help to have a baseline for the, you know, stitch counts and everything that you're going to use. This one, also from Jamieson's of Shetland, called Raga. This is a jumper, really nice. And this can also help you, wow, the lights in the ceiling are reflected in the iPad. This can also help you choose colors if you really like those. You can buy this pattern and they'll tell you which colors they used. Let's see. I think there's a bunch published by Jamieson and Smith as well. This is a jersey, or it's a jumper that's with smaller bands, and it's all in natural colors. Lindsay. It's really nice. That could be you could also just knit that pattern. It's gorgeous. But you can use it as a baseline, or and like deviate a little bit or deviate a lot, depending on how comfortable you are. But they also have published this one called The Roadside All Over. Is that one? Pretty cool. I love the color scheme here. Really pretty. And then there's one other one that they did called Antarctica All Over, which has really traditional colors. It's super cute. Really pretty. It'd be really good for kids. It's got the bright colors. I will put all of these names of these patterns and the links to them in the show notes. If you're watching this on Instagram, the show notes are on my YouTube channel. You just you can click the link in my bio to go to the YouTube channel page, and then click the video that corresponds to the one you're watching on Instagram, and it will be in the description box. I hope this was helpful and somewhat interesting, or at least I showed you a lot of reference books that you might be interested in. I always advocate for getting as many reference books as you can. It just really helps you learn about color, about shaping, about traditional construction. They give you chart ideas. They're just really useful. And, you know, they're there for you for reference. So, yeah, read about what you want to knit. It will help you be way more confident of a knitter. I think that's all. So thanks for sticking with me. This has been a longer video than usual. But I don't know, it came into my head this morning that I wanted to do this. I will be posting videos, another video later this week. We were on vacation last week, so I didn't record any videos, but there will be one on a new cowl that I've been knitting. If you're on Instagram, there's a picture of it that I posted a couple of days ago. It's not done yet, but it's like a freehand design cowl, single cowl in pinks and purples. And I will be talking about a cardigan that I'm working on, a V-neck, all over cardigan. This is exactly the one that I just showed you from the Art of Fair Isle Knitting, but it's in greens, not pinks. So that's all. Hope you enjoyed this. This has been Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma.